Local activists are trying to mobilize the community after recent acts of violence. Among the victims of stray bullets have been young children, and a Boston police report that compared with last year through the middle of October, homicides in Boston have increased by 25%. I'd like to introduce one of the organizers of an event being held tonight, a community activist and former candidate for state representative in Roxbury, Monica Cannon. Thank you very much for being with us, Monica.
Thank you for having me, Chris.
So talk about the past few weeks, what you've seen in Boston and why you're having this meeting.
So the past few weeks have been brutal. There's been an increase in shootings. There's been an increase in homicides. We had a woman who was murdered who was a mother of seven children. Two of them are here, five are in Haiti, and she was an innocent victim. We've had a grandfather who was shot on Dorchester Ave a few weeks ago. We've had two 15-year-olds that have been shot. So there's definitely been an increase and a lot of traumatized people behind it.
In addition to the 9-year-old girl and the 2-year-old child.
Yeah, so we had a 9-year-old who was shot over in the Mission Hill area, and all reports are saying that she may be paralyzed from the waist down, and then we had a 2-year-old who was shot in Roxbury.
What can be done about these shootings that hasn't been done before, you think?
So I think that it's ignorant to believe that you could cut a lot of resources to a specific community or have a community where a lot of people are struggling. It's very poverty stricken, and believe that something positive can come from that. I think that we are in a state that is rich in resources, but they're not being allocated to those that need them the most.
So it sounds here that this is not about let's try to find the bad guys, let's talk to the police, as so much as maybe let's try to prevent more things like this from happening.
So it's twofold. It's preventing more of things like this from happening, but also we're demanding that our elected officials talk to the people who are doing the work, because a lot of these things can be prevented if they actually would have a conversation with those on the ground.
What do you think that they would hear in a conversation like that?
So they would receive intel and they would be educated on how quickly an incident can happen. A lot of these situations where people are being either shot or stabbed, some of them originate on social media, especially with young people. And what happens is they go on social media, they target each other, they threaten each other, and then immediately after a shooting happens. And I think that that in combination with just the street intel, because we're actually on the street as a youth worker, talking to the young people who are shooters, court involved, street involved, or what have you, a lot of these things could be prevented, but they need wraparound services.
We're talking with community activist Monica Cannon. Tell me about the people you would like to see at the meeting tonight, because I can imagine, right, isn't it the parents and some of the young people themselves who need to be here?
So I'm hopeful to have parents, I'm hopeful to have young people, especially young people, because they can advocate for themselves better than anyone. I'm hopeful to have people like the NAACP, because they're an organization that specifically represents people of color. Elected officials, I encourage them to attend, because this is not a situation where it's a fight. It's saying we demand some changes, and not only are we holding ourselves accountable, but we're asking you to be accountable as well for the part that you play in it.
Well, what can young people look at? I can imagine a good kid who's on social media, has lots of contacts, and somewhere in that mix you get some people who are out to do some harm. So what do you do about that situation?
So I think we need to create a structure where young people feel comfortable enough to be vigilant to say something. And I think that's what the issue is. A lot of people see stuff and they go, I wish I had said something, or they may not feel comfortable enough to talk to the police. We need to have structures in place where young people know that it's an open door policy and they can come talk to any adult and report that something happened and trust that their life won't be in danger after they do so.
Of course, another take we've heard on the violence is that this is just reinforced from other patterns, the poverty pattern, the incarceration pattern that Mass Inc. was studying. You've got a lot on the plate with this.
You do, but the thing is I think what happens is we get distracted, and they have us focus on each issue as if it's different. The violence is a direct issue to poverty. It's associated with drug abuse. It's associated with alcoholism. It's associated with the fact that 78% of households in Roxbury are headed by single parent women. So all of it is tied together. And the quicker that we realize that and attack the fact that we're poverty stricken, the better off we'll be.
We should mention this is going to be taking place tonight at the Mosque in Grove Hall?
Yes, tonight at 6 p.m. at the Mosque in Grove Hall, Mosque number 11. It's 10 Washington Street in Dorchester. We're asking everybody who is a parent, a community leader, someone involved, maybe you've been affected by the crime, show up, because we need to have our voice heard. We cannot continue to be silent about this issue.
And finally, if people see this a bit later tonight and they want to get involved after the meeting, another way they can get in touch?
Yeah, so you can shoot me an email. My email is cannon, cannon.monica, MONICA 29 @gmail.com.
Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.